Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Don't forget to subscribe because it's free, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Anyway, this clock was amazing when it was packed and sent to me because I'm sure this one could fall off the truck and wouldn't have been damaged. And so obviously I'll be putting it back in the box the way it came out after I get it fixed. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and hang this clock up and see what it does or doesn't. Let me show you this clock before I hang it up though. As you can see here, the chains are all stuck in bags or whatever. They might have come off because normally you'll put a pipe cleaner through the chains, all of them, to hold them tight so they don't want to come off the winders. And they bought this at an estate sale, and so we don't know what's wrong with it or anything else. But it is a beautiful clock. This is a Oompha player clock. So let me get this apart, hang it on the wall, and see what I can come up with. Also, before I hang this on the wall, I'd like to take a peek inside. Yep, shipping material, so that's why I didn't want to get too carried away. Here it's got the vintage movement in it. No Bellows paper there. And the other one, a little bit. Oh, I see. It works. The music. I don't know if I can trigger the music or not. The chain has fallen off of the time side, which is no big deal. This has the bird with the wings, and it's not wanting to come out. And it's not wanting to cuckoo because it can't lift high enough for that. So maybe someone has tried to work on this. I'm going to bend that a little bit and see if we can get to do something. Yeah, if it's too long of a wire on here, I can bend it some more and see if we can get to cuckoo. One side anyway. And I can't seem to get this clock to do too much of anything. So there's no sense in trying to hang it on the wall. Let's go ahead and take it out of here and see what we can come up with. We'll go ahead and pull the bellows out. I'm going to pull the music box out, which will have 1, 2, 3 screws. And there's there's a fourth screw right there. And so we'll just pop that nail out a little bit so we can turn it and get the music box out. This here has the plastic tops on the whistle boxes, and it's sometimes hard to decide how old this clock is. It's got the movement that hasn't been made since 1950, but sometimes they get it stocked up in there. And anyway, let's get this thing out and take a look at it. Oh, and I gotta, besides the taking the hands off, I'll have to release the birds and whatnot. These music players, you just pull them straight up. They're just sitting on there. And this way you don't ruin them as you lay the clock on its face or whatever. Notice his horns broke. We'll have to glue that back together. And there's the mechanism that makes them move back and forth. This will move back and forth, causing this to move back and forth. And these people, you notice it's got the groove in that piece of metal there. There's a pin that goes across each one of these, and that fits into the pin, and that makes them so it's easily they can move back and forth. So you can hear the tune. I had to bend the door open a little bit, and the rod was hitting the music box wheel, so it wouldn't work. And of course now it won't, let's say, shut off. I'm not concerned. I need to do adjustments on here anyway. Now, I'm not sure why they elected to use metal to give a guide for the chains. The holes are a bit wore out, so it'd been better off, let's say, to use wood, but maybe they didn't have the wood available to them. Or maybe a drill. Well, they had a drill, they drilled the metal. But you can't complain about someone that actually tried to do good to their clock. Because of this being at an estate sale, the person that had this possibly passed on. It's hard to tell, and sometimes they say it's an estate sale, and it really isn't. So for this whistle box, I don't know what they used, but it's not soft enough paper, and it's very hard for this to be lifted. That's not good because that'll give the clock too much friction, I guess we'll call it, or tension, and that's another reason why it won't cuckoo. So because I have to replace the other one with no paper on it, I'll go ahead and replace this one so they'll both be the same, and I plan on using Tyvek paper. Okay, I took all the ends of the chains off, but the chains are still on. I could have pulled them out. So this is what moves this, which moves the people as the music is playing. Oh. With it out of the clock, this is going to go and get in the way of the fan. So that's things you got to look at when you are playing with them to see what's going to make them work or whatever. And there you can see the wheel going around to move them back and forth. This cuckoo bird bobs in and out. Right now he's supposed to be clear out here, but watch this lever here up against the wheel. Look, watch how far it moves away from that wheel, and that's supposed to be snug. See how the bird bobs back and forth? So that's an adjustment you'll have to make. Nope, did I get my chain crossed up again? Yeah. There we go. To finish off. And that could be adjusted a little bit. It's doing fine. It should be really close to the side, so when it does the half hour, it will also be able to stop the clock. Oops, my thumb got in the way that time. Oh, and let's take a look at the names on here. Whoops. It'll probably be better off once I clean this thing so you can see it better. So you can take these off at any time, but you definitely want to get them off there so you don't damage them. Like I say, this is a plastic bird, and it has the wings that move. I don't think I've seen a plastic bird with the wings that move. And take the Music Man off too. You never want to screw these on super tight because there's not much thread, or what thread is there, you don't want to strip out. A smaller screwdriver for him. Oh, he's locked on there. I wonder if someone glued that on there. Or else they put it in there crooked. Let's go ahead and take this off. Put a screwdriver in there. And give it a little bit of a twist. This one here's been bent. Like maybe this clock might have fallen off the wall. Normally that's a little bit straighter right in there. No big deal. And let's see if we can get these off. We need to get the gong, the hammer off first, so we can get these two off normally. Let's go ahead and take that off just to make it a lot simpler too. And the screw has a shoulder on it, so you snug this up good, but it never snugs onto the wheel and stops it. And let's see, we were taking this off if we can. So you just turn it around and then lock it there, and this should come out. The small one is what locks it in. The longer one is the one that hits the wheel inside to make it gong. And you should be taking pictures of this before you take it apart, because right here you'll see one of these arms are longer than the other one, in which normally your hammer will go on, and then the shorter rod, and then the longer rod. When you put them back together, the longer rod needs to go on first, then the shorter arm here, and then the hammer. Because the hammer is the one that kind of gets in the way to get these things out. Now some of these, like this one here, it's really bent. You can't get that thing out of there. You can straighten this up, but just remember those things are delicate and sometimes they'll break off when you go to straighten them. I'm going to take the fan off. Normally, I don't see anything there, so normally it's a screw. You notice a hole in the frame. That's so you can get your screwdriver in and you can loosen the screw that way, hopefully. This one's in there really tight. Let's see if this screwdriver will fit. Nope. And this normally will slip out of there. It's got a pin, so you have to work it, rock it back and forth, because I don't think you can push that pin through because it's not sticking all the way out. There's a pin. Now you can take these all the way apart. You can loosen this nut and unscrew this. The thing is, you got to remember down at the bottom of here there's a small ball bearing, and that thing will disappear on you so fast if you didn't realize there's one in there. Now this one, we'll have to see how fast the music plays. But you'll notice how the fans are turned. They're turned to grab as much air as possible in order to slow the music down. Normally you can loosen those. Sometimes, yeah, this one doesn't do it. You loosen those and you could turn them to where they catch less air and speed your music up. Like I say, some of these movements are different. We can take this off now in order to make it easier and not damage it. Here again you have a pin that holds it in place. And now we should be able to get this out so we don't damage it any. Does have quite a bit of, well, I guess the wear doesn't look so bad. It's mainly the dirt that was on there. Taking these off, remember which way your holders go on, because if you turn them around so they stick upward, then your clock might have a problem with the bird or the music man getting hung up on the doorway or on the frame of the clock. This one is really in there tight. It's like it was stripped in there. Oh, and they tied the string on through that hole there, so that'll have to wait a minute. I got that off. I got the flat washer off, which a flat washer wasn't original to the clock, but you gotta do what you gotta do when you are working on old movements. There's the part that tells the clock when to strike either the hour or the half hour. And that's on the minute hand. Okay, that's a steel wheel. I was wondering if it was that fiber wheel. And here's your friction washer, so that way your hands on the clock don't just spin around willy-nilly. This is the part that controls when it's supposed to ring by those fingers there. This here is a trigger, and the more you can get off, the better it is to try to put these things back together again. So I'm going to take this thing apart and try to get it so we can take a picture of the gears where they're setting. Now, because this one doesn't normally come off, that winder is also going to come up with this. This looks a little weird, like someone put a peg in there. We'll have to maybe take a look at that. But the nice thing about getting this off, if you can, is these levers here. You took pictures, I hope, looking inside all the way around the best you could. But it's great to see where those levers go, to know maybe you have two of them and one goes on top of the other and you have it down below or something. So that's why it's good to pay attention and take pictures. You see some of these are kind of stuck because this movement is so dirty. There's a number one there. Like I say, we'll see that when I clean this up, because I'm going to go ahead and shine this plate up. It does have kind of a shine to it. It could be from the oil or whatever, but if there's varnish on there, it's probably going to come off trying to clean this. And like I say, this is in the 50s. I doubt it even has varnish on it. It probably looks like this when it's clean. So the winder works. Like I said, I'm going to take a look at that a little closer and see if that's someone stuck a pin in there, what they've done to that. Otherwise, I'm not worried whether that winder comes out or not. So anyway, now's a good time to get a picture to see where each of these levers are, where they cross, what they do, or whatever. Yes, they're not going to be perfectly straight because you have the other plate off. But like I say, pictures are going to be your best friend. So this is the side that Cuckoo's. You can see this is caught up in there, and this has got a spring wire on it. It's tied down there, so that I missed that for disconnecting it. See how filthy that poor thing is. But cuckoo clocks are a dirty clock because they are an open clock. Let's see here. Okay, let's go ahead and get the time side. And then this is the music side. Warning pins there. This one is going to play the different or difficult one. That's why I was saying I do believe it's going to be sitting just below this or above this wire, and this wire is what hits it. So when it's done cuckooing, it'll let this trigger and let the music start playing again. This here's got the spring wrapped around the leg. A closer examination of this bird. See on the screw that tightens them onto the shaft, that wire comes up, and I think they kind of looked at an original that had the wings that flap, and I think they did a pretty good job. It's a little stiff, and it might be because it needs to be cleaned or oiled or whatever a little bit to get it to slide to open his beak. But other than that, I think that's kind of a cool idea. What they did is made their own on a bird body that is newer. Now, as before I clean this, and now that it is clean, you can see how this is discolored. This could be possibly they had a sonic or a ultrasonic cleaner, and they had the temperature turned up too high, and that's what causes this to turn colors. Well, I do believe that can be cleaned up. Let me try it. So with a little bit of work, got rid of that blue color. Now something to remember, if it still had varnish on the plate, I wouldn't do that. If the varnish started coming off because of the cleaner, I'd go ahead and strip that varnish off with the cleaner all the way and then buff your plate out. And then of course I like to do the wax afterwards just to make sure this thing doesn't start tarnishing again when you're touching it, putting it together, that kind of stuff. But this looks fantastic compared to what it did. I haven't done that side. There's no wax on this yet. Now, I've done a movement already like this before, and like I've said, because of the count wheel here, they last made these in 1950. They didn't make them after that. And I'm thinking this clock might be a little bit newer. The Oompha players started to be a hit with people in the 50s, early 50s, but possibly the manufacturer that made the clock altogether bought a lot of these movements and are installing them into the clocks, which is all right. It's just that it kind of messes up us with trying to figure out a date for these things. And so these could be clear until 1969, that they had so many movements that they've been putting those in the clocks until they got rid of them. I'm not complaining. I'm not saying these are bad movements. I'm just saying it's hard to date them. So doing the timing of this clock, you have these gears right here that drops, this one here drops down onto. Once it drops, you have this wheel here that has what we'll call the warning pins, and it needs to come around after that drops, and then it will go and hit onto here in order to stop it from working anymore. This here I can tell is sticking out too far, the wire itself. And that can be adjusted later. That's what's gonna bring the music into play. This one's a Cuckoo side. Make sure I know which way it's. Okay, it winds this way, so I can turn it this way. And it's the same way. It has that cam in there, right there, that it stops on. And again, inside here, we have the gear with the warning pin, and it needs to be stopped by the trigger wire in there. Or it's like, let's see here. This here's the cam, this here's the lever that this drops into. This here comes over, and right in there is where it stops on that warning pin. So when I was doing the music side, I wasn't watching the lever right here. It's not this one, it's this one here that goes over to here. The curved needs to be up on top of this rod here, and you can see where it's down, because this here is supposed to push up on it in order to get the warning pin over here to set. And then when this one clicks back into place like it is right now, it allows this one to start playing. So I get the like that. But you'll watch here, as soon as that drops, it'll allow this one to play. And there we go, it's playing. Of course it'll play, like I say, slower. Let me get that fan on there and we can take a look at that. So we'll trigger it. You know, like cuckoos once, we'll say, and then our music starts. With that fan on there, it's a killer on my thumb, I tell you. There we go. So before I get too many more parts on here and bury them with levers and that kind of stuff, I want to oil my clock. You only need a little drop on there. This one here puts oil on there, and then it sucks it back off. And then I can take a tissue, and you can take a tissue too. If you put too much oil on your clock, dab it with a tissue. Don't wipe it, but dab it. And that way you don't have the extra oil on there that's going to catch the dust. I already took this apart and cleaned it out with a toothpick and cleaned the ball bearing that's down in there, and then I put it back together. And when you snug this screw looking thing up, you snug it up until this thing doesn't want to turn very well, and then back it off and then see how easy it is to get it to turn, because it doesn't need friction on there. So this is what is going to keep the bird from opening and closing the door continuously. You got to adjust this so it just rides on the top of this cam here. Shuts off. There's our half hour. Here's coming up to right on the cam again. And to bend that, it's on this lever here, right down here. It's on this lever. It's connected to this rod, and right here is the part where you'll bend it down just a little bit to get it to stop making the bird jerk in and out, or making the door open and close each time he's cuckooing. As for adjusting this wire, this one's a little more difficult for some reason. Oh, I see, it's bent down. It's falling out of its hole, or it's trying to fall out of its hole. Anyway, you have to remember that this will have the music man hooked to it, and it hooks to the door. So it'll only allow this to go in just so far, so it's not going to hit the fan. And so when you're adjusting this, that's what you need to pay attention to here, is wherever this goes in, now where do we need to bend this to so it'll catch it. So let me trigger this. There we go. So there we have this level with the plate. So that should be good enough for the door. This is holding there. And yes, it's still difficult to turn this thing. My thumb's so sore. Oh, no wonder I turned it the wrong way. Anyway, it's going along. Then it triggers. It won't go back in, like I say, all the way. That's what the door is there for, is to hold this from going in all the way. Just that you need to make sure that when this is sucked in a little bit, that this wire is going to catch that and bring it out. You do that so your clock, number one, doesn't squeak when it starts ticking, but it takes the friction out, and your clock should keep running instead of this being dragging all the time. So I can't really show you, because how am I going to take a picture of that and show you what I'm talking about? But to get these wires, the lift arms, and the gong into time to where it shuts off, I loosen, or I take this nut off, and what I'm doing is I'll loosen this one too. I'll separate the frame and take this gear that has the teeth on it that operate these. I can see in here after it shuts off how much I need to move this, and you might have to do it several times because you never get it perfect, and eventually you will. You separate it, you have to take this gear away from the other gears, and it's just minimal that you're getting it away because it has other parts stuck to this gear. And then I'll turn this gear however far I have to in order to get these things to work correctly. So we have a gong, cuckoo, gong, cuckoo. That last coo is what we're looking for and hoping our hammer's not getting ready to strike again. Like that. I have to do a million. We're at 11 o'clock right now. Gong cuckoo, gong cuckoo. So when I was moving this rod back and forth, just testing out any friction or tension on the clock, this was really sluggish. So I went ahead and unscrewed each of those because it felt like there's a bolt that came up and just went back and forth inside the shaft of the disc there. And you can see it's got holes for something to fit into. So these, like I say, they do feel a little bit sluggish. So this way I can clean them up or whatever I want to do with them, besides oil them up. That one's stuck almost. So that's why I say it's a good thing to try to get rid of the sluggishness, friction or whatever. And this is showing you what's underneath there and how this thing might work. Okay, I had this whole thing apart again, and why it ran just fine before I put it in the movement or into the box, I have no idea. But the only thing I could figure out is my trigger from the Cuckoo to the music. The bar for the music wasn't falling all the way, and that was causing this to hang up, I guess. And what the problem was is this piece right here, it's a T, and it's meant to hold these two in place, and this was cocked just a little bit too far, rubbing onto the one trigger, and that way it wasn't free to drop down like it needed to be dropped down. Now that I got it fixed, it seems to be working fine. Let me hook some weights up and then we'll run this thing. Very nice. This here has, looks like a 21 there. Not sure what it means. I turn it over and it has a 41 right there. So I'm very happy this clock's running again. I'm sure the person that owns this clock's going to be very happy too. Like I say, they've well packed this clock, and so hopefully it won't have a broken off horn again because of how well they packed it. Maybe I have to do a little bit of trimming on some of the foam that's in the box. Anyway, if you appreciated this video and got clear to the end, or even if you didn't make it to the end, you skipped to the end, thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up because that helps me out. And go ahead and leave a comment at the end. Just let me know how your day is going, but don't get too crazy. And I'd appreciate that. Anyway, thanks a lot for stopping by again, and God bless.